Taoiseach, for Grace Lynch, last Sunday began like any other, spending time with the family, having breakfast, talking about her plans for the day, texting friends, having the crack with her sisters and her baby brother. And then later on Sunday afternoon, Grace went to meet her boyfriend, and she never came home. As she crossed the Ratoath Road, a short distance from her home, Grace was mowed down by a scrambler bike, hit at full speed, at full force, throwing her body across the road. She was rushed to Connolly Hospital, where doctors desperately treated her catastrophic injuries, but it wasn't enough. And Grace Lynch died that evening. She was 16, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her, the apple of her father's eye and her mother's pride and joy. Killed on the road, in her own community, as she went about her everyday 16-year-old life. Every parent's worst nightmare, every family's worst nightmare, every young person's worst nightmare. So now, instead of preparing for school, her heartbroken parents prepare to bury their lovely daughter. Taoiseach, Grace Lynch was failed catastrophically. Scrambler bikes have been the scourge of working-class communities in Dublin and beyond for years. Neighbourhoods terrorised by antisocial behaviour involving these bikes is nothing new. Gangs driving scramblers dangerously, harassing, intimidating people, delivering drugs, countless accidents, and a constant sense of menace. But government failed to listen to communities and failed to take them seriously. So it was, in reality, only a matter of time before somebody was killed. And now that somebody has a name. Her name is Grace Lynch. For more than a decade, we pushed government to crack down and introduce stronger laws to get these scramblers off our streets. And then when you wouldn't act, we did. In 2021, we brought forward legislation to take this on, but government amended and blocked and dragged their heels. In 2023, you finally brought forward legislation which didn't go far enough. And as we meet here today, this legislation has not been enacted fully. Only today, when a child is dead, government talks about moving quickly, tightening things up and taking action. The absence of any government urgency in tackling the menace of scramblers is frightening, and Taoiseach, this has to change and change fast. Grace's mother, Siobhan, spoke at a vigil in Finglas last night, and she said that watching Grace take her last breath was the worst pain imaginable. She vowed to fight to get these scramblers off our streets, but Taoiseach, this isn't a fight that she should have to take on, because it's government's job to act now to ensure that another life is not lost. Yeah. Taoiseach, you owe it to Grace's heartbroken parents to set out what you will do now to get scramblers off our roads and our streets, out of our communities where they've wreaked havoc for years. I spoke with Grace's mum, Siobhan, last night, and she told me that Grace was a happy girl, a kind girl. She loved her family, she loved her friends, she loved the colour red. She loved life, and she should still be here, and her death cannot be in vain, because Grace Lynch matters. What happened to her matters.
Thank you, Deputy.
What happens next really matters, and Taoiseach, the government must act.
I want to express my deepest sympathies to the family of Grace Lynch, who was mowed down by a scrambler and who died as a result. No words can console the family. Nothing that I can say can in any way ease the devastation, the pain, the hurt, the anger that Grace's family feels right now. I understand that anger, and I understand the devastation that they're going through. They have lost a beautiful daughter who should be going to school, who should be with her friends today. And there is an investigation underway. In 24 and 25, about 300 scramblers and quads together have been seized by the Gardaí. But that's not enough. And the third aspect of that, the Department of Transport, and I am convening an immediate meeting of Transport and Justice, because I had to convene a meeting in 2020, 2021 to start the ball rolling and getting this legislation done, notwithstanding a degree of resistance at the time. Couldn't be done and so on. Well, it was done. But those final regulations need to be dealt with. They should have been. I'm very clear about it. In my view, it will happen. It should have happened in terms of the signing of these, or the formulation and dealing of these regulations. And I understand fully the anger of the people in working class areas, but particularly in Finglas. There is no need, there should be no scramblers in public roads. We have it within our power to make that happen, and it will happen. But that said, nothing can take from the utter devastation that this terrible mowing down nothing can ever ease that devastation that the Lynch family have experienced as a result of the loss of Grace from that collision the other night. That is, but rest assured we are, and I've spoken to the Minister, Mr. Kenny, this morning and so forth. That work needs to be completed. Progress was made on a number of fronts, but that needs to be completed.
Her life was lost needlessly, and as I said, it was predictable. It was predictable that a life would be lost, and yet the law dragged its feet. And I hope you hear the anger. I hope you hear that anger from Finglas. That community has its arms around Grace's family, and they will mind them. But they will not tolerate anymore, no more than the community in Ballymun or Ballyfermot or Clondalkin or Taoiseach or parts of Limerick any longer, that people are allowed to run amok in working class communities, to put people's very lives in danger, and a 16-year-old life taken. No words of consolation can ever meet the pain of Grace's family. But Siobhan, her mother, told me that action would be some consolation. Swift action, not words. Take these bikes off our streets and make our kids and our communities safe at last.
First of all, I do hear the anger from the community, and we're going to act. But also I know that the Minister for Justice has spoken with the Garda Commissioner. He is attending to this immediately, in treating this with the utmost priority in terms of the enforcement side of it. Although on the legislation in terms of seizure and so on, they did act in a number of areas, and despite what one hears, they were in a position to seize some money. But that, in terms of pursuing scramblers, there is a pursued policy. But I do believe the Commissioner is going to review that with a view to, again, taking a more intense approach in relation to it. But the more fundamental point is that the remaining part of this legislation has to be enacted and commenced in terms of taking these scramblers off our roads, as is provided for, despite what gets said, as is provided for in the primary legislation that was passed by this House in 2023.
Thank you, Taoiseach.